everyone. Welcome to Here We Are, Brattleboro's community talk show. I'm Wendy O'Connell. We're back again. We have someone else from the community on who's going to talk about what they do, and that person today is Emily Wagner. Emily is the executive director of the S.Vt Photography Project, which is on Main Street here. Emily is carrying on a tradition of empowering youth in Brattleboro through creativity and inclusivity. It's an amazing program, and she's going to tell us all about it today. With a background in the visual arts and early education, her skills include nonprofit management, fundraising, and community organizing. Emily is also a practicing artist herself in many media, and she's always a passionate arts advocate. Welcome, Emily.
Thank you, Wendy.
It's nice to have you on the show. Also great to be able to get some information on S.Vt photography. I think that I, like many other people in town, know S.Vt from being back on Flat Street and right next to Vermont Center for Photography. So you can clarify that for us, for one thing.
Yeah.
And also what you guys are up to these days. But first, you are from the South.
I am.
The Carolinas, I think, right?
Yes. Yes, I grew up in Spartanburg, South Carolina, which is a city right on the border of, it's in South Carolina, but on the border with North Carolina. And my father's family is in Western North Carolina, outside of Boone, North Carolina, and so that is where I spent a lot of my spare time.
Yeah. And I imagine that when you go back down there, you have an accent that reappears?
My husband says I do, yes.
When you were growing up, you did a lot of really interesting things, very eclectic things.
Yes, I was easily bored, and my mom and worked hard to get me into a lot of different activities. I'm so lucky that I was able to explore, music and dance, played the piano and the violin, but also was in the choir at church and played handbells. And sitting in the classroom was never something that I really wanted to do. And so being outside, being active, being creative. I was a Girl Scout, and I loved serving my community and in that. Doing different projects, whether it was playing cards with people at a nursing home or, helping to pick up trash or whatever at a park. I had a lot of different experiences.
Yes, that you were interested in, and that's really amazing. And you mentioned that your mother was a social worker, and so you did arts programs with adults as well.
Yes, my mom has got her master's in social work when I started elementary school, and so that was definitely a big influence on me growing up. And as I became more restless as a teenager and probably wasn't, had dropped off on some of my activities like Girl Scouts and piano and things, she wanted to find a way for me to be a part of my community and help out, and so I started volunteering my time for, it was called Inside Out, and it was an arts organization for low-income adults with cognitive and physical disabilities and differences, and so it was a really amazing experience. I mostly just sat and next to them while they worked, and if they needed help getting paint out of a container or mixing colors or advice on what to do next. I knew what art meant to me, but to really see what art meant to other people and to see how beneficial it could be as just a way to connect with the world and other people.
Having that experience of working with older people, for one thing, out of your age group, and realizing the connection and the healing force that art can be, has really carried through your life.
Definitely. And I guess there were other kind of more personal experiences. My first photography class as a young teenager, and I loved it so much, and I wanted to take the second phase of it after accomplishing the first intro to photography. I wanted to do the second class, but because of the limited resources at my school and the fact that the teacher went on maternity leave, we had the shop teacher taught the photography class, and it became essentially a study hall. And and that was something that really stuck with me that the arts were so important to some people, but not always like valued by the system, and not always like supported by the public education system.
At some point, you mentioned this, that you had a dream of making art accessible for kids and teens especially.
Yes, yeah, and you know, and that really stems from experiences I had in public school where as much as I loved art and really found it to be a source of, you know, anytime it was like, can you draw a picture of this historical scene? It was, yes, I can, you know, because that was much, I'd rather do that than have to write about it. Being able to help other people connect in the arts and celebrate it was just, yeah, it became really important because from my own experiences.
Yes, yes. And your grandmother also was a big influence, right?
She was,
yes.
Yeah. Her parents were artists. Her father was a photographer, commercial photographer. He actually had photographs in National Geographic, and his wife was did the hand tenting, the painting of these big, massive landscapes, and so she grew up around a lot of creative people, and you know, I think she definitely always encouraged me to pursue the arts and to be creative for as long as she could. Had me believing in fairies and magic and things like that, because she knew that it was good for my soul.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you come to Marlboro College, right? A tiny little school far away in the Northeast.
Yep.
And you were studying psychology and the visual arts there. Yeah.
Yeah, I found Marlboro through my guidance counselor at school. She was really loved small liberal arts colleges, and she, you know, gave me a list of, you know, I said I kind of wanted to see what the Northeast was like, and so she gave me a list, and Marlboro stood out for some reason, and I came to look at, you know, a couple different places in the area, and I really liked Marlboro because it had such a different feel to it than the traditional college experience that I was aware of. Yeah. I grew up in a college town, and I have older siblings. I watched them go through college, and my cousins go through college, and to go to a place that didn't have like organized sports or an organized Greek life experience was very radical, and to be able to have interdisciplinary studies so easily was very exciting to me.
And you flourished there, right? You really,
I think so. Yeah.
What was it about psychology? The visual arts, obviously, you already had a background in, but what was that piece?
Watching my mother study social work, right. I grew up, you know, kind of being aware of psychology as a thing, and, you know, she was, you know, and we were watching her, you know, because she became a therapist, so we were watching her, like, learn how to be a therapist, and but then, you know, also I think of my experience in art history and just kind of seeing how culture and people's thinking evolved with the arts. I also realized that, like, if I wanted to be an arts educator, I really needed to know how the mind worked and how people worked, and so I'm really glad that I was able to combine those two loves of people and how they work and the arts.
Yeah. It's a really good combination, and it's something I think that a lot of artists don't think of necessarily, especially applied arts track. Marlboro is also where you met John Willis, and his name has been mentioned so many times by folks on the show, just for being such a wonderful person and a great teacher. Yeah, and he also was one of the founders of Insight.
He was. I remember coming to Marlboro and meeting John and learning that he had this funky little side project down on Flat Street, and like, what is that? And you know, how he was really allowing kids to experiment and discover their own aesthetic and their own way of working and their own way of being. And I thought that was so special and beautiful. And I was, you know, I had really kind of, at the time, really felt myself as a painter, and that I couldn't totally, you know, cross over into photography, but I had good friends who are photographers and worked at Insight and had great experiences there, and so I always was aware of it in that way, and really admiring it from afar for what they were doing to promote, young people being artists.
Looking at John Willis and the beginnings of Insight, and he worked with another gentleman whose name was Bill Ledger, yes, and they were noticing that teenagers in town were kind of acting out a bit, and created this.
That's the story. He and John and Bill were sitting outside of Mocha Joe's, and I think they were like across the street, and they were looking over at Mocha Joe's, and they saw this group of teenagers just kind of hanging out, being teenagers, but they were consistently being harassed by the local police department. And after, they said they watched this going on for a while, and they were talking about a grant that they were wanting to write about, going to Canada or something and taking photographs. And they said, well, why don't we use this grant money here? What would happen if we gave these kids something productive to do and we taught them photography? And we made it really accessible, because that's, I think, such a key piece of that story. It's not just we're going to teach a photography class to those people who have cameras. We're going to teach a photography class to anyone who wants to hold a camera. And we will find a camera for you, and we will find the film for you. And because I know from John's personal story, and I imagine from Bill too, that once they actually got a hold of, getting a hold of the camera and learning was just kind of half the challenge of learning photography. And
give a kid a camera, right? And have them walk around town.
Yep.
Yeah. So before we get totally into Insight, you were an educator.
Yep.
And you worked at Green Valley School and Kindle Farm.
Yeah. So those were my early educational experiences. I was also a student teacher at Green Street and Oak Grove. I left college wanting to work in a school, and I was so excited to work for Green Valley School because I knew so little about Waldorf education, but really found it to be such a beautiful, wonderful thing, and they had such a great connection to nature and to the needs of the child, and really thinking like holistically about the child as a person rather than a vessel to be filled with knowledge, and that all really resonated with me. And I loved the Kindle Farm approach too, of really giving kids, meeting them where they are, despite their challenges, and giving them purpose and respect and agency. And I thought that was all so wonderful. And
also, I think, your connection to nature, which started at an early age, to have kids outside doing things.
Right. I mean, that was, I always wanted to be outside. And so that was definitely something that attracted me to Green Valley School, because all of the class time, we only ate lunch inside.
Wow.
Even if it was 0, we were outside. It taught me a lot about how kids, respond to the outdoors, and how my own self responds to the outdoors, and just how good it is for people to be outside.
Healthy, I know. It seems so simple, doesn't it?
It does.
As a concept, yeah. You did that, and then you ended up going back to grad school?
Yep.
Yeah.
I went back to grad school. I went to Union Institute and University out in Montpelier, which was a great low residency program, and studied curriculum and instruction in art education, and got my teaching license.
And you did a stint at Let's Grow Kids.
Yes.
And just a little personal story that I found out, not knowing that Emily worked at Let's Grow Kids, which is where my daughter also worked. So they met there and actually worked together for a few years at Let's Grow Kids. Great organization.
Yes, and so my teaching career was a bit derailed when I discovered I was pregnant and couldn't find childcare or afford childcare. It ended up leaving the kind of formal education career and working informally, taking care of other people's children, because that was how I could take care of my own kid. And there was a few hard years there, and my husband ended up getting a job offer in Virginia, so we moved to Virginia for a few years, in part because it was going to be more financially feasible to not have childcare, or we could pay for childcare easier there.
Yeah.
And we didn't. We liked parts of Virginia, but we really felt like, living in Vermont was where we wanted to be.
Yeah.
And I saw the job for Let's Grow Kids, and it really spoke to me. Their vision at the time was to make Vermont the best place to raise a family, and I could not agree with that more. So personally, knowing the struggle of families to find and afford childcare, it really felt like such a full circle to be able to help advocate for that.
Right. That's right. That's right. And you had the personal experience.
I did.
Yeah.
It felt very real to me, and so it was just such an honor to help move that legislation along.
So Emily, you end up at Insight Photography Project here in Brattleboro, creating a learning environment for kids, for youth in the community. Can you tell us what you do as an executive director there?
What don't I do?
That's the answer.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of everything. I guess what I don't do so much of is actually teaching. My program director, Michael Zagorski, is a fabulous photographer, and he really leads our programming very well. So from my point of view, or what I know, I mean, it's everything from finding people to collaborate with us or partner with us to, making sure we have enough toilet paper and soap, to making sure we have our display window set up.
Right.
It is a little bit of everything. But I love that kind of work where things are not routine or set in stone. I like being kept on my toes, so it is fun.
One thing along the way, Emily, you learned that you had some good administrative skills that you brought to Insight as well, and even went back to CCV to learn some darkroom skills and some more photography skills. So you're bringing all of that with you to the job. And now you're working, as the director, and there are so many different kinds of I guess you're calling them classes that kids can do. Everything from photo clubs. Well, I'm going to have you talk about the different projects, the ones that really stand out for you, and the ones that have been really popular for kids, and maybe why you think they are popular for kids.
There's so much today to fighting for kids' attentions, and there's so many different kinds of activities available to kids now than when we started in 1992. So in order to kind of give some diversity to our curriculum, we're still offering kind of your standard classes, but we've also added on a photo club, which is a way for kids to undertake photo projects in the community. So this summer, they've done a project they called the Bench Project, where they've had strangers meet on a bench in a public place, and they photograph them, with the intention of trying to capture that moment of connection. And such a beautiful project. And this was something that they came up with all on their own. We just sort of said, tell us some ideas. What do you want to do with your camera? How do you want to use it in the community? What do you think would be beneficial? And this is, from their conversations, this is what comes out of it. And so it's a great way for kids to apply what they've learned in the classroom, but also be doing something in the community that's, bringing some positivity and connection. We also have started what we're calling the Youth Photo Awards, which is another way for us to engage with people, but not necessarily through a class. It's open. Submissions are open to anyone living in the state or within an hour of Brattleboro. We also have a category that's open nationally to anyone who wants to submit. But the idea is that there are categories in the contest There are jurors, locally and nationally recognized photographers, and they're going to select top images, and those top images can win B&H gift cards. B&H is a photo video supply store, and we'll have gift cards for $600, $300, and $100 for the top images.
Great.
In addition, there'll be a Winner's Circle exhibition at Brattleboro Museum. And our friends at Cone Editions Press up in Topsham, Vermont, which is a fancy photo studio run by Kathy Cone and John Cone. They're going to do prints of the winning images, and then there's a whole other kind of smattering of things where kids can have a solo show at Insight or a portfolio review, things that are. All of this is with the intention of giving kids a springboard into the creative careers so that they have equipment and guidance and feedback and something that they can put on their resume or application.
Right.
So we're really trying to give a meaningful opportunity to kids who may or may not have had an opportunity to take a class with us.
Right. You don't ever turn anyone away.
No, we never turn anyone away. Insight has always, that was a foundational principle for Bill and John, was that there would be a sliding scale fee structure and we would turn no one away. And the same is true today, even though it's sometimes financially challenging for us to not have to run a class and not necessarily like break even at least. It's still, we know that it's exciting for the kids and beneficial for them to have the experiences that they're having. Right. It is a real core piece of what Insight does and who we are, is making sure that if a kid wants to learn photography, that they can learn photography.
You do have a new space on Main Street, which is down is it the Hooker Dunham Alley?
No,
it's the other one.
It's the other one. It's the other one. We're the other alley on Main Street, right beside Mitchell Giddings and Penelope were down there.
Yes.
In 2019, we held a capital campaign and purchased the space and renovated it and moved in. And it's, much improved over our old space on Flat Street. In terms of its, we have a much bigger dark room, much bigger digital lab, an actual classroom space, actual gallery space. We used to have what we called the tiny gallery, which was about the size of this table, and now we actually have several hallways in which to display artwork. And then we have this beautiful view of the Connecticut River and Wentasticket Mountain. And when they realize that it's a space for them, you can tell that they feel very special being in there because it has just such an impressive feel to it. And I think that's really important, that kids have spaces where they feel important and they feel pride in being there. And you can definitely sense that.
And that it's theirs as well. And and you do sense it there. I would really suggest to folks stopping by, and going through and taking a tour and looking at the show, whatever show is up at the time. It's really a fabulous space. It's wonderful. And you do feel, when I was there were kids doing various things in various places. There's a lot of activity, great energy. And for those of us who have been here a long time, this space is where Autumn Wind's restaurant used to be, and we all know how beautiful that space was. So that's kind of where Emily's office is. And it's used for other things too, but the view is just incredible. It's a wonderful space.
It is wonderful, and we work really hard to make it feel youth-centered, like they're really welcomed there. We, someone once said, it feels like I'm in like a fancy rec room basement, and I was like, that's kind of the vibe we were going for, because we have lots of little toys and eclectic collections of things, but we also try to keep it really clean and simple and display the artwork.
And it feels that way. And one of the great things in there is the wall of Polaroids. It's very cool.
That's a fun tradition that was started a long time ago, I think close to 15 years now. We've it's the way we get each class kicked off is kids take a Polaroid of themselves, or someone takes a Polaroid. They get to choose how they want to be represented in their Polaroid, whether it's their hand or whether it's just a their favorite water bottle or whatever it is. Because we understand that some kids want to be in front of the camera, some kids want to just be behind it.
Right.
We want to make sure that they get kind of a nice ease into what it's, into picture making.
Yeah.
So it's fun, and it's been such a nice, I love that we have collected them for so many years, and have them on the wall, and
yes.
We sort of wonder, when will we run out of space? When will
yeah, it's a lot of square footage.
It is.
Yeah, and as you are supporting these kids and really empowering them in so many different kinds of ways, you too are being supported. You've got a great staff.
Yes.
You've got a great board, as I understand it.
Yes, I have an awesome staff, an awesome board. Michael and Rachel Betcher, who supports as another staff member who supports us. We've had a couple, really awesome interns as well. And then my board is so lovely, chaired by Eileen Todd, Rachel Portese, and Rachel Disler. It's,
oh, nice.
It's really lovely. I'm so thankful for all of their support and enthusiasm. And
yes, and they each bring something to it as well. I mean, some of them are also photographers,
yes,
or in the arts in some way. I imagine that part of your job, or the board as well, is trying to raise money and get grants and go through all of those processes, right?
Yes, I mean, that is making photography accessible. While it's a noble and wonderful, beautiful thing, it is challenging to raise the money that is needed to keep the wheels spinning and the facility going. We're a great team, and we've got great energy and enthusiasm for what we do. I welcome anyone who wants to come by and see what we do and help support it to reach out.
Yes. Yes, stopping by and taking a look at it. I think that just seeing what's going on there, you get the whole picture pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And there's some great shows. They do some wonderful work.
They do. I mean, this summer we've done so many cool things. We took a group of kids to, we did a class we called Sky to Sea. So they went and took photographs of the birds up at the Southern Vermont Natural History Museum. And then did a trip to Gloucester and did a whale watching tour and learned about ocean ecology with Ocean Alliance. We also did a class in partnership with Bonnie Vale Environmental Education Center, where we called that Mountains to Moss, where kids were learning everything about nature photography, but also really getting to explore unique ecological sites in the area, going up to the Bradford Bog and to over to Sadaga and things like that. Just lots of trying to help kids to see what's in their backyard, essentially, and what's exciting here that they have not experienced
That's right.
before.
That's a really big backyard that
It
we've
is.
got
It
here.
is.
It's really exciting. Yeah. Well, it's really cool to hear all these things, Emily, and to know also, your story a little bit and how you've really brought together the things that you really have cared about in your life. And in one place that you can really give to others, and to youth, but to the community as well. It's great to have you in our community.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. I love being here, and it's such an honor to help support the youth in this community. They're a real creative, wonderful, lovely bunch. Yes, and
absolutely.
They deserve to be given every opportunity to excel, and I love that I get to do that.
That you get to do it, yes. Well, thank you. Yeah, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thanks to all of you for being with us today and hearing about Insight Photography Project, which is ongoing, which is right on Main Street. You can stop by and take a look and see what the kids in town are up to, and what Emily is up to too. And we're so glad to have Emily Wagner with us here today. Stop by here at Here We Are again and see who's on the show next week. Thanks for being with us.